I'll be honest, like if I'm trying to pursue like a woman for that kind of agenda, I found that being polite is a lot more effective anyway. So there's no real reason to be persistent anymore. If I walk up to a girl and say, yo, I just want to be honest with you, I think you're a really good looking girl, hope you don't mind me saying that. I was hoping to get to know you a little bit more tonight. Would there be a possibility we could do that? Yes or no? No? Fair enough. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you. Yeah? Fantastic. What's your name? No, what, personally, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't feel like anybody could be offended there. And I've said what I'm interested in politely. She's understood it. She said how she feels about that. That's the end of that. That's, for me, where I think it should be up to right now. Trying again, why is it a no? All these things is going too far already now. She's already said no, just leave it there. If she changes her mind, she knows where you are in the club. Do you know what I mean? It's as simple as that.
Yeah, LJ, help us out, because I've heard wedding speeches that, you know, if you take away the context of the wedding, it just sounds wild. It's like, you know, I rejected him so many times. You know, he kept showing up at my house. He called like 25 times, and now, you know, help us out. What is going on with men, and what do they need to learn from this no situation and the value of it?
I mean, I think most of us, I can't say all of us, but I think most of us generally are in agreement that behaviours need to be changed in the general public. But these behaviours, I believe, they're culturally enforced. So how do we enforce change in culture? Governments have struggled with that for centuries. How do you enforce not catcalling? But is that our line? Because essentially what we're doing is we're saying is that we need to decide where the line needs to be for sexual assault or low-level sexual assault. Now, we're all saying, you know, everyone has ideas of what's wrong and what's right. However, if we're going to enforce change and we're going to try and actually resolve this, we need to decide where that line is. So is catcalling across the street, is that illegal? Can you be arrested for calling? Because now you're interfering with freedom of speech too. So it's really difficult to enforce because it's so culturally ingrained. So how do you change a cultural opinion, particularly when it's ingrained in only a small percentage of men, really? I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's kind of where the problem lies, is how do you enforce cultural change?
Education. I'd say education, because once you know the effects that you can have on someone, and I think that's what it comes down to. So if I know if I said to all my friends, look, before you do that, just think about whether or not you know that's what she wants, and would that be beneficial for her? Or is it beneficial for you in front of your friends? Then instantly, nothing's necessarily illegal, but the mindset on the action has changed, and therefore it's less likely, and a new level of consideration has been given. So we're not saying, no, that's illegal, no, you can't do that. We're just teaching people the responsibility of their actions so that they look at these situations differently, and hopefully it leads to a different behaviour in those situations as a whole. That's why I think it comes down to education on consent and responsibility.
But doesn't the education take a generation to get through to the general public?
Better late than never. Better late than never. Like,
but we're having protests now about changing the law.
That's correct.
Isn't it? Like, we can't think ahead of 4 years.
Okay. And I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I think these conversations need to be had, and whenever they come into effect, it's better late than never. Like, okay, you're right. I think the question earlier about why these conversations had now, why this Sarah's case led to this whole new thing, is because we're a generation with social media. And people like didn't used to have a voice, now have a voice. We're like a generation of who are actively seeking change. And if you see something, we'll talk about it. 8 people will talk about it. Those 8 people will form a group. That group will go protest and it'll be then brought to the surface. So I think, yeah, it's late. Yeah, is it going to be 100% first time round? No, but I think it's conversations that need to be had. Every time this, say for example, this podcast, if one man listens to this and goes, "Rah, you know what? I never realized that she could feel that way when they're doing that," we're heading in the right direction. And I think that is a start. It's not is it a complete solution for formula for success? Not necessarily, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And I'm always happy to take a step in the right direction instead of staying where we are.
Yeah, nice. So LJ and Kane have given us a summary there. Just as we end, Emma, what would you like to see going forward? How would you like to see things shaped differently in the coming years?
Well, we keep using the word education, but I just think it's the obvious one, isn't it? I think because I think the problem is what I want to see is people doing something about it, because the thing is I know we're doing it now, we're all sat around talking about it, we can all talk about this conversation over and over and over, and it can go round and round, but I want to see stuff happening. I think protests and things are physical, and there's something which I know we're going to come on to, and they have a message, but it's like a temporary action. I think there's a long term, we need to plan, we need to have milestones, we need to hit those milestones, and only once we hit the first one will we move on to the next, and the one after that, and the one after that. I just think I would like to see a plan, and I think it needs to encompass all ages, all backgrounds, all areas of work, places of work, schools. It just needs to hit, and it needs to hit hard, but there just needs to be a plan soon.
Okay, so planning, education. I guess the best we've got so far. ZaZa, how did you feel about the undercover officers in venues? Mean anything to you all?
Undercover officers in like...
Yeah, so that's been the
nightclubs, was it?
Yeah, the grandest response so far is to to sneakily have undercover officers around in clubs and such.
I mean, yeah, it could be a good thing, but at the same time, surely there's officers in the clubs anyway, like they're just off duty. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't get why it has to be that in order to address something that's internal. Like, obviously, if you're doing 25 in a 20-mile zone, the presence of a police officer in the car is going to mean that you're going to slow down and go 20. But when he gets out, if you have the mindset that, okay, now I can do 50, it's internal. It's not upping, police presence or things like that. While that might have a benefit, it might have an immediate effect that it stops. I think it's more the ideology and the mindset behind it. So,
okay, ideology and mindset. And Mai, any final thoughts on what we do going forward?
More to talk about it. I don't know. More podcasts, more conversations.
Okay, cool. All right, people, you've been watching that awesome podcast. Thanks for being with us today. Like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and we keep it going. Till next time, goodbye from me and goodbye from our panel.
Bye.